Before we get going, our NBDL staff is here from Idaho. Our head coach, Michael Peck, our assistants, Barry Rorson and Scott Williams. They'll be mingling in the back, so whenever you guys get sick of listening to me, please go over, introduce yourselves. Any questions they have about our vision and our purpose down in the D-League, they'll be able to speak to that. They just got back from the open tryout in Boise yesterday. So, all right. No questions? Good.
Biggest concern going into training camp?
You know, all the new pieces. New general manager, new coach, new coaching staff. 8 new players. So I think putting all those things together will be a challenge, but I think we got a head start on it. We had 80–90% of our roster here, since right after Labor Day. So I think that's accelerated the learning curve, being on the floor with our coaches, doing the drill work. So I'd say we're probably ahead of where we thought we would be, but not really yet where we want to be.
What is your message to the fan base as we start the season?
Get on board. Get on board. It's going to be a really good year. We're going to play an exciting brand of basketball. I think for the first time in a little while up here, we've got a common vision between the front office and the coaching staff. We're going to play with a purpose, and we've got a direction. And we've been true to that vision and that direction from the time that we worked on the draft. We drafted 3 NBA caliber players. We think we've got franchise pieces at 2 of those positions. One immediately, one that's going to take a little bit of time, and another NBA rotation caliber player with Will Barton. So from that, I think we made cost-effective signings when we didn't get the max player we were looking for, which is going to help us preserve our cap flexibility going forward. We're going to develop the assets we have and increase our asset pool. But it's going to be a good year. We're going to compete. We're going to be in a lot of games. We're going to win games. And we're going to fight and scrap for a playoff bid. But what we're not going to do is, throw away our long-term flexibility and an ability to be sustainable and have success on a long-term basis to run to mediocrity. That hasn't worked here in the past. It's not my goal for the future. It's not Paul's goal. But we've got an engaged owner. We've got an exciting coaching staff. We've got a lot of young players. We've got a motivated front office. So it's going to be a big year.
Who are the Trailblazers today?
They're your team. That's who. I mean, who in terms of what?
How do you describe the Trailblazers today?
Emerging, I think is the word. I think we're further ahead than a lot of teams that are in what you would consider a youth movement. The irony is probably our 3 or 4 best players are also guys that on most rosters would be considered young guys. So, I look at it as a luxury more than an issue. When you have young talent like LaMarcus and Nick and Wes and Damian, and you can surround them with the kind of young pieces we've got that can grow with them on the same arc, we're going to be sustainable. We're going to have success for a long period of time with this group.
When you look at the cap space and you look at the youth on this team, how much moving around the players in the season do you anticipate, if any?
Well, look, my job is to generate deal flow. We've got a directive from ownership that we're going to accelerate this curve as quickly as possible. Paul and I have discussed that at length. But what you've got to realize is you've got to grow your asset pool. We've got a lot of guys on our roster right now that aren't proven in this league and therefore don't have market value. So, in an ideal world, we would grow all these players and they'd be a part of our organization for the long term. But if you reach a crossroads where you've got to make a decision whether you put your assets into play to accelerate your success curve and bring back a more established player, the only way to do that is if these guys have value around the league.
How far away are you from being a title contender, do you think?
I don't know. It's a great question. I don't know at this point. There are some known quantities on our roster. I think we've got some guys that are going to outperform what they've done here in the past. Guys like J.J. Hickson, guys like Nicholas and Wes playing for Terry, playing for the kind of system he has. So I think they're going to improve more rapidly than they have. They're going to be more productive. But we've got some question marks. I don't know how long it's going to take, Joel Freeland to adapt to the the NBA style game. I don't know how long it's going to take for Nolan to find his niche, and if Luke can kind of step up and be the player he was drafted to be. So we've got some question marks, but we answered some of them during our voluntary workouts, during an informal setting, and we'll get more answers over the next 30 days.
Has there been any? Are you guys going to address Elliott Williams' status? Will you pick up his option?
Well, look, we've got multiple guys we've got to make decisions on. We've got to make decisions on Nolan and Luke and, and Elliott. And we'll make those later on in the month. Right now, based on the roster composition, we're going to evaluate it based on where we are today. We've got to take our cap flexibility into consideration. And anybody that's a part of our core going forward is a valued asset. And whatever impact they may have on our cap going forward is a non-issue. But if there's an opportunity cost by picking up those options, we've got to evaluate that as well.
Elliott's status is a little unique because he's out for the season.
Right.
Have you given thought to waiving him to add someone?
Well, we won't waive Elliott. I mean, remember, just so you know, from a housekeeping standpoint, even if you don't pick up an option, doesn't mean you can't re-sign those players. So.
Would you apply for some sort of exception because of his injury?
We did. We applied for a disabled player exception. It doesn't really make that big of a difference in Elliott's case because his salary was low enough where you get 50%. It doesn't create an additional roster spot. You've got to have 3 guys out, for the full season before you get an additional roster spot. So we've still got $2 million in cap room. We've also got a trade exception from the Raymond Felton deal. So, we applied for it because it's a tool we could use later in the process. Once the minimum contracts are prorated, we would be an opportunity where we'd have about $700,000 to spend on a talent grab maybe later in the process.
Neil, you said you're going to put a lot on Damian, partly because of need, partly because it's warranted. Do you worry about a young point guard, though, when you put a lot on from day one?
Well, he's had a lot on for 4 years. I think, Damian's a little bit unique in that he's carried the Weber State program for the last 4 years. He's taken ownership of the responsibility from a wins and losses standpoint. I mean, they've won conference championships, and they've been a contender in that league. So, as you guys saw in Summer League, and I know it's Summer League, but he embraces it. It's one of the reasons we went and got Damian. As talented as he is, and he can break his game down and quantify the shooting, the ball handling, the assist to turnover ratio, the pick and roll efficiency. What can't be quantified is his leadership ability and the gravitas that he carries himself with for a young player. So, there's a lot on Damian, but if he didn't want it, he wouldn't be here.
You're bringing in Adam Morrison. You talk about what he needs to do to make the team and what your vision is for why you brought him here.
Well, I mean, look, he deserves a chance. Adam's a good kid. Probably for a guy that got drafted as highly as he did, he got fewer opportunities than anybody else in that position. He's a local guy. He can score the basketball. There's a hole there based on, Elliott's injury. We kind of had Elliott slated in for all those backup minutes at the 2 with Will Barton competing more down the road. So, Adam's got an ability to score the ball. He performed well in Summer League. And, if he's able to beat out a guaranteed contract, he'll have an opportunity to make the roster. But, we're going to hold Adam to a high standard. He's going to have to be someone that can absolutely contribute on a nightly basis. And we know he can score, but can he be a good team defender? Can he move the basketball within the flow of the offense? Can he at least manage his position defensively? Will be the questions we have to answer over the next 30 days.
If you could crystal ball a little bit, so to speak, what and where is Myers able to whatever they need to?
Better. He was better. He was better at Gerg's camp than he was at Summer League, and he was better in the informal workouts than he was at Gerg's camp. So, he's going to accelerate his curve really quickly. Kim Hughes does a great job with big men. I watched it firsthand with Chris Kaman and Elton Brand and the guys we had in Los Angeles. I've watched him in the offseason with guys like Zach Randolph, guys he developed, further back like Antonio McDyess. So, he's been assigned to Myers. They're both big, goofy white dudes, and they think on a unique level. They're both very intelligent, but they deserve one another at times. So, but Myers has been great. Finding a 7-footer that runs the floor like that can make free throws, that can make jumpers, that has good hands, that can finish. I don't want to. He's different. Going back to your point about Damian. Damian's a 22-year-old, 4-year starter at Weber State. Myers is a 20-year-old kid that didn't really play much as a freshman. So it's going to take him a little bit of time, but I think every day we are in the gym, he proves to Terry and the staff that they can trust him on the court and they're going to need him out there.
Athletically speaking, Myers, who is he? I mean, are there players that you can compare him to than currently?
Yeah, he's a tough comp because he's really fundamentally sound. He is a very good athlete. I think, not to say stay too true to the Dallas Mavericks situation, but he reminds me a little bit of Tyson. I knew Tyson back from when he was an 8th grader at Dominguez High School, and Tyson was more of a perimeter type player. He shot the ball, he handled it, he ran well, he had a really good face-up game, and that's where Myers is today. He doesn't have the defensive shot blocking instincts that Ty has developed. But if you looked at Tyson 9 or 10 years ago, he was more of a face-up elbow guy. And I think that's where we are with Myers today. He's an excellent, excellent passer. He's really comfortable at the elbows and at the high post, and the type of stuff we've been doing offensively, he's been a great facilitator. Running the floor as a dive guy to get to the rim, he complements LaMarcus really well in terms of floor balance. So I think, he's got a similar body structure as Tyson, similar mobility. And like I said, with film, with coaching, with daily drill work, I think he'll get the defensive shot blocking instincts.
Obviously there's a couple of tactics you could come here with. Come and really pump up this team, get people excited about it, or kind of caution expectations and say, look, it's going to be a rebuilding effort and take some lumps. Why did you choose to really pump it up?
I believe in it. Look, first of all, when you have LaMarcus Aldridge and Nick Batum and Wes Matthews, it's really not a rebuild. Look, we were very aggressive in free agency. We went after a franchise caliber player. We didn't get him. But instead of reacting and running back to the middle, and I keep reiterating that, we don't want to be a middle-of-the-road team. Nobody wants to sit and fight for 7th, 8th, or 9th and get your butt kicked in the first round of the playoffs. And that's what's gone on here. I think we're the only team in the Western Conference that hasn't won a playoff series in the last decade and a half. And I don't think that's a standard that this community is looking for. It's not the standard I left Los Angeles to come and develop. It's not why Terry's here. And I think it's not what Paul wants. I mean, he wants to win a championship. Everybody can talk about that, but you don't win championships overnight. And it is a process. But I think the process is further along than people believe, because I think you guys are looking at, Nick and Wes and LaMarcus as guys that have been here. And I'm looking at them as completely new players based on the offense we're going to run, the coaching staff we have, the system we're going to have. I think they're going to flourish. The question marks we do have, which are absolutely legitimate, is depth. And that is a victim or a casualty of the fact that instead of going and getting the $5 to $7 million backup players to solidify the bench, we want to make sure we've got a starting lineup first. I think we're 70 to 80% of the way there. We've got a question mark at the center position. I think Damian is a starter, Wes is a starter, Nick is a starter, LaMarcus is a starter. Terry's probably going to give an opportunity to JJ. I think it's unique. He's not really a true 5-man, but as a dive guy to LaMarcus's pop guy, I think we can get away with that at the position. He's tough. Got a great center of gravity. He can bang. Myers may develop into that. That's going to take some time. Joe Freeland's an interesting piece that can swing both ways at the 4 and the 5. But, you can't give up cap flexibility and opportunity cost to solidify a bench until you get your starting lineup intact. If you look, the teams that have competed for championships, they got their starters together first. That's what we have to do, and it's either going to be done via trade during this season, or it's going to be done next offseason where we're going to have up to $13.5 million in room again.
2 more questions for Dale.
So to follow up, you said fans should expect a good season. What metrics should they use to evaluate a good season during and at the end of the year?
Well, one, I think we're going to be better in April than we are in October. I think every night that they walk into the building, we're going to have an opportunity to win a game. But we're not just going to win, it's going to be how we play. Look, how you win and lose in this league matters. There are 40, 41-win teams that nobody wants to watch play. And then there are, I was at the Clippers. We won 32 games, our first year that Vinny took over. We won 32 games. We were out of the playoffs in January, and we sold out our last 18 home games because we played a fun style, we competed, we won some games we weren't supposed to win. And every night the fans walked into the building, they knew we were going to leave it all on the floor. And the coaching staff was going to give them opportunities to be successful, and the players are going to compete. And I think that's where we are right now is, we talked about this during my opening press conference, which was I want guys that want to be here. And everybody on the roster right now wants to be here. They want to play here. Guys left money on the table in Europe to come join our roster, like Victor and Joel. We had guys that through the draft wanted us to manipulate situations to get here. Nicholas is excited about being back. LaMarcus is on board. Wes is excited. Guys like Ronnie Price, took below market value to come and join this team. So, like I said, I think fans are going to embrace the fact that they've got guys that really want to play for the Blazers and want to be a part of something that we have going forward in terms of direction and process.
What's your perspective on this job relative to when you took it?
Well, I love hanging out with you guys. It's great. I have to tell you, when we were in Los Angeles, it was a fight. You had to grab market share. You had to give people a reason when you were battling Lakers, Kings, Ducks, Dodgers, Angels. and here, being the only show in town, that pressure it's warranted, it's merited, but it's exciting. It's exciting to know that people really embrace this organization and want it to be successful. And I think, it's so exciting talking to Paul because he's re-energized right now. I mean, he's so engaged. He's going to be here tomorrow for the opening day of camp. He's watched every scrimmage over the internet. Our guys playing full court. He calls with feedback. He watches them. I've never had an owner do that before. So any owner that's excited enough to be watching guys play pickup in the middle of September on a webcam is willing to do whatever it takes to win. From the NBDL, from following a vision of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater in terms of preserving our cap flexibility, bringing guys over from Europe. We're in a process of making some capital improvements to the practice facility to make sure we have the best resources for our athletes from a conditioning and physical development standpoint and medical treatment. So, every resource we can have is available, and look, it's up to me and my staff to just use them properly.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up there. We've got a lot of interviews to get through.